Good afternoon, parents and carers. Thank you so much for joining us today for this virtual event regarding the teaching of RSE at Chorley High School for Girls. The aims of this event today are as follows. We want to reassure you about the teaching of RSE at Chorley High School for Girls, and this is starting in the summer term 2021. We also want to show you the resources for lessons in each year group, and we are going to show you the lessons that you requested to see following the parent questionnaire that was recently conducted. We also want to ensure that you are familiar with the topics being taught in each year group. We hope you will have an insightful session today, and we hope that by the end of the session, you will feel comfortable and reassured about the teaching of RSE in our school. On this slide, we outline what the Department for Education want all secondary school students to have been taught by the end of secondary school. So the first theme is health and well-being. Health education aims to give children the information they need to make good decisions about their own health and well-being, to recognise issues in themselves and others, and to seek the support as early as possible when issues arise. By the end of secondary school, there is a list here of everything that students need to be taught about. This includes mental well-being, internet safety and harms, physical health and fitness, healthy eating, drugs, alcohol and tobacco, health and prevention, basic first aid, and changing adolescent bodies. The second theme is relationships and sex education, otherwise known as RSE. Relationships and sex education will build on the teaching at primary school. It aims to give young people the information they need to help them develop healthy, nurturing relationships of all kinds. Our school will cover content on what healthy and unhealthy relationships look like, what makes a good friend, relationship or colleague. At the appropriate time, the focus will move to developing relationships to equip your child with the knowledge they need to make safe, informed and healthy choices as they progress through adult life. By the end of secondary school, the content that we have to teach students is as follows. Families, respect for relationships including friendships, online media, being safe, intimate and sexual relationships, including sexual health. I will come on to the teaching of this at Chorley High School for Girls very shortly. As a school, we have been highly sensitive about the topics being taught for RSE and for the statutory RSE requirements that the DfE have instructed schools to teach. At Chorley High School for Girls, we have been mindful of the sensitivity of this for our students and our community. We have ensured that we have undertaken the absolute minimum to ensure that we are compliant with DfE guidelines. To put this into context for you, we have only had to add 7 lessons across all 5 year groups to ensure that we meet the basic statutory requirements. How have we done this as a school? We have scrutinised lesson resources to take cultural and religious beliefs into account, and we have adapted these for our students. We have removed any references to alcohol, pubs, etc. As a school, we are not including any sex education lessons at all, as these are delivered through our curriculum areas, for example, science and Key Stage 4, where students choose child development. We have ensured that safeguarding is our key focus to enable our girls to make the right choices and to keep themselves safe. And we have absolutely ensured that all lessons are age appropriate for each year group being taught. As parents, it's important that you know the steps that we take to support our students during these lessons. And these are just some of the things that we do to ensure that they are understanding of the topics. Students know they have a weekly PDC lesson as part of their timetable. Students have the opportunity to raise any concerns about a topic with their form tutor, their assistant head of year, their head of year, and even their senior link. Sometimes form tutors use a Pandora's box to enable questions to be asked and to be addressed in the following lessons. We have a blended approach to these lessons, and the heads of years and assistant head of years plan the scheme of learning with myself on an annual basis. This means that we absolutely know the content being delivered rather than tutors planning lessons themselves, and this really helps with our monitoring because we know that there is consistency for each topic in every class in each year group. Form tutors will adapt the lessons in order to meet the needs of their learners, but the content remains the same for all form groups in each year group. On this slide, I've given you some ideas and steps that you can take to support your daughter. Talking about the lessons on a weekly basis is a really good starting point. We will publish the overall plan for each year group on our website and on the RSE Google site that was sent to you previously. When the lessons have taken place again, find time to explore some of these topics with your daughter, because this enhances their understanding and also helps address any misconceptions they may still have. Thirdly, please speak to our staff about topics if you're unsure. The year teams are the best people to contact and they will happily address any queries that you may have. This slide outlines the outcomes and what you can expect for your daughter from taking part in these PDC lessons. Discerning and mindful human beings willing to participate as positive citizens, solution-focused individuals knowing how and when to solve their own problems and when to seek help, resilient, caring young ladies caring for themselves and for others, questioning and challenging minds that want to learn, self-knowledge for self-efficacy, emotionally literate students, and developing exploration skills, so looking for their own answers. Throughout our PDC programme, we are confident that a focus on wellbeing and mental health not only enables us to provide a healthy and happy school environment for students and staff, but it also prepares the students to be influential women of the future. These next 5 slides show you the programme of study from Year 7 through to Year 11. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to see these already because they were made available to you on the RSE Google site and on our website itself. I'm just going to give a few minutes on each slide so you can have a look at the topics being covered in Year 7 all the way through to Year 11. This is the Year 8 programme of study and this will remain the same as will all year groups on an annual basis. The Year 8 programme of study, you will see that there is a large number of lessons dedicated to our first give, which is a social action project, something that the Year 8s really enjoy. Again, I'm just going to give you a few minutes to have a quick look at these topics, just in case you haven't already seen them. This is the Year 9 programme of study for each academic year. You will see that there is much of the time dedicated to research and things like colleges, having a look at subject options for Year 10, and there is also a real focus on workplace skills. So thinking about work experience for Year 10, thinking about places of work for the future. And also we have got some relationship themes in here around CSE, domestic violence and body image. Just going to give you a few more seconds to have a look at the content here. Please do remember you can check this out on our RSE site and on our website. This is the Year 10 programme of study, again for a whole academic year, and this will not change next year either, so it will remain the same. We are going to try and keep all of the programmes exactly the same in each year group. You will see again here, there's some reference to work experience because they do that in Year 10, CV writing, hopes and dreams, homelessness, they look at some Barclay's life skills. They start to look at alcohol awareness and things like self-worth, which is the mental health aspects. We also start to see more age-appropriate relationships topics coming in here. Again, from a safeguarding point of view, things like forced marriage, revenge sexting and image sharing and the dangers of this on social media. And we also look at role models and how they influence young people due to the media, due to social media, and this is so important for our young people to be aware of. Again, just going to let you ponder on this one for a few seconds more. finally, we have our Year 11 programme of study. Now, with Year 11, you will see that there's a big emphasis on things like personal statements, college talks, where the colleges come in and talk to our students, things about apprenticeships, preparing for interviews, revision techniques, and they have the introduction to the NCS, which is a brilliant opportunity for the Year 11s. And you will see in the summer term that we actually have a lot of intervention forms, so we don't actually teach PDC at all from summer term 1. You will see here that there is lessons on consent, rape and sexual abuse and relationship breakups. And these were 2 lessons that people actually requested to see the resources for. So I'm going to show you these a little bit further into the presentation. Again, just going to give you a few more seconds to have a look at the content for Year 11. As promised, here are the resources that we will now share with you, and these were what you requested to see following the parent questionnaire. In Year 7, we teach a topic called family relationships, and the focus of this is really on what are the different types of family relationships, and does it matter what kind of family I have? This lesson covers information on nuclear and extended families, and it looks at family roles. And one of the really nice activities that students do is they look at how roles have changed since the 1950s. Now, I've included a couple of the slides from the presentation that the students actually have. So you can see the sort of challenges that are set. You can see that it informs a lot of debating opportunities and discussion points. So really, it's a fantastic lesson, and it just really addresses the nuclear and extended families. In Year 8, we have a lesson on consent. This lesson focuses on what it means to consent to something with extremely child-friendly content. There is no reference to sex, and we use the cup of tea analogy from YouTube. Students actually start the lesson by thinking about students being at a sleepover, staying up late and having fun, a child falls asleep and the rest of the children decide to draw on that person's face. So it introduces the lesson to say that, why did this make Hannah feel horrible? Why was it not okay for them to draw on her face? And it goes on in that direction. The learning outcomes are to correctly identify cases where consent has or has not been given. Describe the cup of tea analogy and how it can be used to explain consent, and explain whether consent has been given in certain situations. And the students will work together in pairs to make this happen. I am also going to share the scenarios with you, which we have completely amended and adapted for the use of all students here at Cholmondeley. Within the consent lesson, students are given a range of scenarios which they will discuss with the person that they are working with, so it will be in pairs or in threes, and the teacher will give a number of real life situations. Students will have to discuss these and then give some feedback to the class about what they would do in the situation and why it wasn't okay. So to take you through these, the first one is about somebody that's thinking about having a tattoo drawn, and he was thinking about the design he might like, and while he falls asleep, his friend who's a tattoo artist decides that she might like to tattoo his body without him actually having the consent to do so. The second one is an example of somebody borrowing someone's car and they take it again without asking for it, so it's all about the consent to actually use somebody's vehicle. The third one is where 2 friends decide that they are going to come together to each other's homes to watch a movie, and one suggests to watch Pulp Fiction, the other one says, well, I've decided that's not really for me, and that it's okay for him to say, I don't really fancy watching this. The fourth one is about some people just playing some cards together, and it describes the rules to the person. She decides, actually, this game's not for me, I'm not really interested in this. And again, she doesn't have to play something if she doesn't want to. And finally, the fifth scenario that we use is 2 guys in a gym, and one of them, because he looks like he's in a gym, somebody asked him to carry some of the weights, and they are just landed on him without actually asking him if he would help to carry the weights. So these scenarios are completely child appropriate, and it does get through the message of what consent means without making any reference to the sex word. In Year 8, we have a look at teenage pregnancy, and the focus on this lesson is really about the challenges that young parents might face. So students have to discuss challenges that young parents might face. So let's say it was a 15, 16-year-old child who was pregnant. Starter activity just encourages thinking around what those challenges might actually be. There's then some reading that the students do together to sort of find out a bit more about the issues faced by young parents, statistics behind teenage pregnancy, and options available for pregnant teenagers. In Year 10, we have the topic of same-sex relationships. And what this lesson looks at is the terminology and how relationships differ. This is the only year group where we include the LGBT information. In this lesson, the students actually get to understand the different terminology. So it talks about homosexual relationships, heterosexual relationships, and the LGBTQAI. The outcomes really are around understanding the ways that homosexual and heterosexual relationships differ and ways that they are the same. And there are lots of challenges that the students complete. Most of it being around a friend who's contacted them who thinks that they might actually be gay. I will show you this on the next slide. So these are the tasks that the students actually complete in the Year 10 lesson. So their friend Tamsin has sent a message and she thinks that she might be gay, and what she's looking for is almost like an agony aunt activity where she's looking for some advice from her friend. So there's a little 25-minute task, there's a challenge, a more challenging and a mega challenging activity, and depending on where the students want to pitch it themselves, they will attempt the challenge. So the plenary then comes where they summarise 3 challenges that people in same-sex relationships face. They are then familiar with the terminology associated with same-sex relationships, but they can make that comparison and the differences between heterosexual and homosexual relationships. In Year 10, we also have a lesson on parenting and babies, and this lesson looks at, again, the challenges of being a young parent, but it's very different to the age appropriateness that we would have taught in Year 8. So again, I've included the slides that we include for this lesson. So being a new parent, what it's like and why it can be challenging. So it talks about Lauren loving her new daughter, who's really happy, but obviously Lauren is struggling. So sleep's been an issue, money's been an issue, and it just gets students to put into perspective the reasons why Lauren may not be sleeping, the reason why she has no money, and why she might be feeling so tired. And then what it does is it also brings into the equation about the dad's role. So students have got lots of discussion points in this lesson, and again on the next slide I'll show you more of the tasks that the students complete. Here are the tasks that Year 10 complete in this lesson. In task 1, they read a new dad's diary, so it's about the feelings of the dad about having a baby at a young age. So things like how much is common for a new family to spend on nappies and formula, how much parental leave has Adam taken, and why is Adam struggling at work. Task 2, we look at things like caring for a newborn, and it's sort of around some practical tips. And then it gets the students to consider like what the baby will look like when it's born, what happens to the umbilical cord, what is vitamin D, and there are lots and lots of questions here that you can see on this slide. And the main task that they do is they run a help page for new and prospective parents, and they've had a few messages, so they have to actually respond and use the information to answer each of the messages and be as detailed as they can to provide some advice. So again, a bit like an agony aunt style activity here. In Year 11, we have a lesson on consent, rape and sexual abuse. And again, the focus here is on the importance of consent and actually understanding the different terminology. So understanding the difference between sexual assault, sexual abuse, rape and consent. So again, you can see some of the activities that the students do here as a starter activity, and it's getting them to reflect on whether it's okay to do something or not. So this is the rest of the lesson for the consent, rape and sexual abuse. And as I already mentioned, there is a discussion around the different key terms, so the differences between consent, rape, sexual harassment and sexual assault. And the whole idea is that the students actually have the opportunity to understand where sexual boundaries have been crossed. if that may be the case. Now, in the scenarios that we use, we have no reference at all to any sexual scenarios of any description. So some of the case studies you can see on here, so just to give you an example, there's one on here about Tia, who was desperate to break into the modelling industry. An agent said he could get her a big contract and to come to dinner to talk about it. And all Tia remembers is ordering a drink, and she wakes up the next day on a sofa that she didn't recognise. So it just prompts some discussion about things that may have happened. Was this okay to happen? And how we actually, if it's a crime, and actually how we actually keep ourselves safe. This lesson in Year 11 is about relationship breakups, and the main sort of outcomes of this lesson are that they can correctly identify how we can help friends and ourselves to mend broken hearts after a breakup, describe the best ways we can help and distract our friends and actually help to manage each other's emotions, and explore the meaning of key terminology and use these phrases accurately. So some of the tasks that the students will do is that there's a young lady who has actually broken up with her boyfriend, and the first thing that they need to do is to think about what it would be like to be friends with somebody if that was their situation. There are other tasks involved, which are finding out about why breakups feel so bad, what causes them, what causes our minds to react in the way that they do, and the most important element of this lesson is what we can do to support each other as friends if you were going through a breakup. This may also be applicable to family breakups and breakups with mums and dads. So it's just good to address it for students so they can actually help support people.